I am now the most miserable man living. Whether I shall ever be better, I cannot tell. I awfully forebode I shall not. To remain as I am is impossible. I must die or be better, it appears to me.
In the anguish of these words, one of America's greatest presidents, Abraham Lincoln, describes his lifelong battle with depression. Throughout history, many famous and extraordinary people have felt the pain and suffering of depressive disorders. Some of them have shared their struggles publicly to bring awareness to this issue that millions of ordinary people also experience. In fact, over 30 million Americans may be affected by major depressive disorder. The annual cost to the economy is billions of dollars. The cost in human suffering is immeasurable.
Going through it was like a roller coaster ride through hell.
I felt that there was no way out. The pain was beyond description.
The doctor said to me, "Michelle, I think you need a psychiatrist. This is getting worse." And I remember reacting, "I don't need a psychiatrist. I'm not crazy."
Community life, family, friends, and workplaces all feel the impact of this debilitating illness.
I went to work depressed and was able to get through the day, but when I came home, I got on the couch, curled up in a fetal position with a blanket, and I slept.
I felt the burden of the responsibility of our children. I was the primary caregiver because John just couldn't function.
I was also confused as to what I should do as a person, as a relative of a depressed person. Like, what was the best thing to do?
And depression doesn't discriminate.
They come from different socioeconomic backgrounds, different religious affiliations, different educational backgrounds. Depression is so ubiquitous that it really can be anyone. It could be myself, it could be you, it could be the neighbor next door.
Depression is often misunderstood and consequently misdiagnosed. Fortunately, in recent years, a clearer picture of the emotional and the physical symptoms of depression has emerged. Depression is a painful illness, and the pain is real. The good news is there is hope for all those who suffer and for the loved ones who accompany them on their journey through the darkness.
Yeah, long story.
John and Michelle started dating as teenagers and have been happily married for 14 years. Michelle describes John as a happy-go-lucky guy who doesn't sweat the small stuff. A few years ago, however, John started feeling sick and his personality began to change right before Michelle's eyes.
Physically, I was a wreck. There were days I couldn't get out of bed. I just laid in bed all morning shaking. I wouldn't even call into work. I would get headaches. I felt nauseous. I was just in a total fog.
There was an episode at work where he started complaining that he wasn't feeling well, and they had to take him to the hospital. He didn't know if he was getting chest pains, chest discomfort. He felt weak.
Heart disease runs in my family. So one of my main concerns was there something wrong in my heart? I just thought I was going to have a heart attack.
And don't forget about, we're going out with everybody on Friday.
Yeah.
It was so different from his normal being. When the kids wanted to play with him, he would not be interested. He would tell them, "Not now, I'm not in the mood."
I lost interest in everything. I mean, I didn't want to do the things I love to do. I love to ride my bike by the shore. It just ended. I just wouldn't ride my bike. My fish tanks turned green. I'd go weeks without even touching them. I'd go days without even feeding them. I wouldn't even go near the tanks.
I told him, let's go to the doctor. Let's see what's going on.
I really didn't want to. Being a headstrong, macho kind of a thing. Good. But I did.
Okay, can you open your mouth for me?
Like many people, John reported only his physical symptoms when he saw his family doctor for a series of appointments. In fact, a World Health Organization study found that 69% of patients with depression reported physical symptoms as the sole reason for their visit to their primary care doctor.
He gave me all the tests that a doctor could give you. Stress tests, Holter monitors, all kinds of blood workup. Everything came back normal.
Everything is normal.
Even the stress tests?
Stress test is perfectly fine.
Really?
Once we've done the appropriate workup and diagnostic testing to rule out any other illnesses, I usually then ask some other questions which might be helpful.
John's doctor went through a series of questions with him that are known as a depression screener. This tool helps physicians evaluate whether or not a person might be experiencing depression.
Have you noticed that you've been feeling like you are blue enough where you're crying or want to cry for no good reason?
Honestly, yeah.
Okay. A lot of people don't realize that a lot of the physical symptoms they're experiencing can be a byproduct of depression. That's really why it's important to educate people that this is a real entity and those symptoms really exist. Okay, I think the problem is, based on what you told me, is depression.
Think so?
Yeah, I really do. And I just wanted to show you, this is a little pamphlet on depression and gives you a symptom checklist. And a lot of the symptoms that you had complained of when you came to see me, I think you're going to notice here. People with depression have a lot of the same symptoms that people have with other medical diseases. They can have complaints of extreme fatigue. They can have gastrointestinal complaints. Despite the fact that some say they can sleep all day, others say they find it impossible to sleep. Insomnia that you were explaining to me about, and also the constant fatigue that you had, the irregular, the restlessness, the irritability, all that were part and parcel of the symptoms of depression.
Many times people are young when their journey with depression begins. Michelle first became depressed at the age of 23.
TJ, you want to fold some napkins? No. It was after the birth of my first child. That's when it started. I didn't understand why I was losing so much weight. I didn't understand why I was crying all the time, and I didn't understand why I felt the way that I felt. I never realized that depression can manifest itself in such physical symptoms. You feel like you have these 2-ton weights on your shoulders and you can't move. I don't eat. I can't sleep. I start to get stomach upset. I'll have GI symptoms. I'll feel sometimes like I have to vomit, but I don't. It just so happens that for me, the person who recognized what was going on with me was my OBGYN, and he helped me find the right physician to help.
Michelle's story is a common one, especially because women are about twice as likely as men to experience the pain of depression.
What? Yes, I know. It's almost your birthday in Zachary's.
Today, Michelle's depression is under control with a treatment plan that includes medication, talk therapy, and lifestyle changes. She is committed to keeping up with her treatment plan because she has learned from experience that depression can return. In fact, 75% of people with major depressive disorder will suffer 2 or more episodes of depression in their lifetime.
All right. Normally at this time in class, I stop the video and talk to everybody. I think with a topic like this, it's important to hear stories about other people and what they go through. And it's a little unfair to hear stories about other people, especially as a teacher, and then not talk about your own experience. And so while we're not in class now, I do want to take some time to talk to you about my experience with depression. So it's a bit personal, but just fine with me. When this is over, if you have any questions, you can always ask. And in class, I don't have a planned speech for this or anything, so this may be a little bit unorganized and not real professional, whatever, but I think that kind of matches with the topic. And so I might fumble around a little bit, but this is the way it goes. Growing up, I don't know if I had depression or not, but, I certainly remember times where my parents would say that I was moody or something was wrong, and I kind of didn't notice or didn't care, or it was just a phase. And then there were times, as I recall, growing up and getting a little bit older, that was probably the case. But again, it was just me and didn't really affect anybody. But I had an incident, or a couple of incidents, but one I want to kind of share with you that kind of woke me up to the fact that there was something kind of beyond just normal, maybe sadness or having a bad day. And it kind of became an issue for me. And so there was an incident, and the incident was this. There was school had just ended. It was June, and I was off, and I had the whole summer ahead. And I had a new child, my oldest son, who was about 2 at the time. And I remember it was a couple days into the summer break, and it was just me and my son. My wife was at work, and I took him to the park in the morning. And I just remember being at the park with him, and there was no one really around or anything, and for some reason just being angry, frustrated, annoyed, something. It just didn't feel good at all. And I, put him on the swing and we walked around, but I was just kind of angry or something about everything. And so we didn't stay very long, and we kind of came home pretty quick. And at home was the same. I was just kind of like annoyed is the best way to kind of describe it. And then my wife called from her work, and just a nice little call and to ask how everything was going. And I remember she could tell on the phone that I wasn't in a good mood or something, and she said, "What's wrong?" And I said, whatever, just who cares? Just I kind of blew it off. And she's like, "No, what's wrong?" I'm like, "I don't know, I'm just kind of angry and pissed off about stuff." And she asked, "Well, what's wrong?" I said, "I don't know." And I'll never forget this, and this is kind of the Kickstarter for me. She said, "Well, why don't you think about all the things that are good in your life? Think about all the things that you're grateful for." And I can't believe I'm saying this now, or I can't believe I said it then. But my response to her to that pretty reasonable request was, "Well, I've got nothing in my life to be thankful for," which was not true, and not only not true, but a really pretty terrible thing to say to my wife, to the one I love so much, especially when I was staying that day at home with my son, that I had nothing to be grateful for. And so that's one of the elements of depression. When I'm in it, as I call it, things don't make a whole lot of logical sense, and they're not the same me as when I'm not in it. And so when my wife said that, that's how I felt at the moment, but I knew that also wasn't me. And so that was kind of devastating to me a little bit, because while I'm depressed on my own, myself, that doesn't really affect anybody. And so what, kind of. But, at that time I was kind of in my late 20s, and, I have a child. I've got a son who now just didn't enjoy the park. Because his dad was in a bad mood, and that sucks. And then on top of it, my wife didn't deserve to hear this terrible thing I said, that I had nothing in my life to be grateful for. And so she's affected by it, and she was affected by it before, I'm sure. But I kind of think, not to that degree where she had to hear something like that. And so that was one of the biggest moments of my life that I came to a conclusion or a realization that that's kind of what was going on. That it just wasn't a bad day, it was beyond that. It wasn't normal. This is a beautiful sunny summer day with my son. I'm off, I'm at the park, and I'm pissed off. Like, it makes no sense. And maybe in this video I'll show you a couple other little incidents that reminded me of that. And so from that point on, I think I started working on it and investigating it and being more aware of how I was feeling and why I was feeling certain ways at times. And then kind of a similar story, a little more funny. I remember quite a bit later on, maybe 10 years later, it was a summer day again, and I'm floating in my pool on a float, just relaxing, or not relaxing, and I remember eating chips and salsa, and just totally bummed out, right? And my wife came out and was like, "Hey, how's it going?" I'm like, crappy. And she's like, "Why?" I'm like, everything's just terrible. It's just, and the craziness of that situation, I'm in my pool, floating on a float, eating chips and salsa, yet I'm miserable for some reason. It was just illogical and made no sense. Nothing had happened. No one had died. I wasn't injured. I wasn't hurt or harmed by anybody. And so just who knows where it came from. And so those are real quick, kind of some of my experiences. And these are very personal, and not in the sense I don't want to tell you, but that they're kind of unique to me. And I realize everybody has their own kind of experiences. And I could tell tons of stories about these. But for me in general, it kind of creeps up a lot. I'm just going to try to describe you the feelings that I get. The most common one is just kind of exhaustion. I'm just kind of really tired. And sometimes that's normal for people to be tired. But with this, it's like a weird tired, like 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 days of being really tired and needing to nap. And so that's kind of one of the biggest underlying feelings I have personally. And then feelings of being annoyed. Everything kind of annoys me, kind of gets on my nerves. And kind of combination with that, I want to be annoyed, which is a weird thing to say, but like I kind of look for it, I guess, to be upset at something or someone or a situation. Like I kind of want to fight. Like I got this kind of pent up kind of frustration. And so those are kind of the feelings I have a lot when I'm in that moment. I wish I was in front of you to take questions. A lot of times that helps me kind of talk about it and explain things. And I know there's more, and I just can't think right now, and I want to kind of keep the video live, but also not waste too much of your time. And so another question pops up often is, well, have you ever gone to counseling or taken medication? And I haven't, but that's not because I don't think I should or won't in the future. I was able to get a handle on it in my belief with the help of my wife and talking with her and becoming aware of it. And so in the class, I know we did these things, these little exercises, and I think I made a little mention to you that we'd come back to it again about, the have and need list of writing everything down, or the budget of writing everything down that happens. And that's what I did. I can't remember exactly when, but at some point, what I did was I kept a journal. Those are my dogs, Bailey and Bo. They bark too much. Be quiet! I kept a journal, and it was just a calendar, really, a book. And just every day I would write down how I felt 1 to 10. That was it. And it would be, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 6, 7, 8, who knows. And I just really try to become aware of my feelings and how I felt during the day. And on occasion, I would write little notes if something stuck out to me. I didn't write real long, responses or anything. I kept it really quick and easy. And I did it that way for a whole year and just documented how I felt. And then at the end of the year, me being me, I even plotted it on a graph to see where I could see the dips and what happened. And for me, that helped a lot because I became very aware of my feelings and how my body was reacting to things. And in talking with my wife, I could identify those moments. And one of the things to me is that this depression is a little devil on my shoulder talking to me, enjoying it when I'm depressed. And to me, the mind and the body or the person are two very separate things, is how I feel. And the little devil on my shoulder likes to be a real pain in the butt. And it likes it when I act like a jerk, when I act angry, when I say terrible things to my wife. And as long as it's hidden and no one sees it and he can hide, he really enjoys it, and it makes me look like the jerk. And so what I discovered in documenting this and in talking with my wife is that if I could know it really wasn't me, but rather it or him, my mind, that it would, like, the fun would be gone for it, and it would take off and would be gone. And so what I started to practice with the help of my wife was to tell her that I was in it, I'm there. And because she would get worried that it wasn't a depression, it was me being angry at her, me being unhappy with her, which made her feel bad, and that's the last thing I wanted. And so she requested, hey, can you let me know if this is what's going on, so I know you're not mad at me, it's just you're going through something. And I'm like, yeah, that's fair. And so we practiced that, I practiced that, and I would try to tell her, hey, look, I'm there right now, and so don't take any of this personally. And it worked, kind of, in that if I would do it as soon as I would kind of let it out and identify that that's what was going on, not all the time and not easily, it would kind of just go away. It lost its power. At least that's how I felt. And now the interesting thing about that is, when I'm there, I have no interest, ironically, about getting rid of it, because I just want to be angry and pissed off or upset or sad. And so it became a challenge very often that I would know it. I'd go oh crap, I'm actually depressed, and I could say something which would make it go away, except, I'm depressed, and so I just want to be pissed off and angry, and so I wouldn't say it to my wife, which is also a thing I'm not real proud of. And so this has always been kind of a practice for me, and I did it for a couple of years, a long time ago, and it worked. And then because it worked, I stopped doing it, and for a good, 10 years, I kind of didn't have depression. But I've noticed in the last, 5 years or so, it creeps back up, and it pops up, and different times these things happen, and so it didn't go away. I didn't cure it, but I kind of know how to get around it or adjust or deal with it a little bit. And so that goes to the therapy or medication, not really. In class, another question I get frequently is, were you ever suicidal? And, good question. And when my wife asked me a couple of times too, obviously having kids and being married, she's like, I got to know, are you feeling suicidal? And for me, the answer was no. It shows a misunderstanding to me of what I feel like. The biggest feeling I have is that I just don't care when I'm in that position. And so I don't care enough to kill myself, if that makes sense. No, I wouldn't go out and do it. I don't have that need or desire, and that's for me. But at the same time, I just don't, I don't care about anything. I just don't, whatever. And so no, for me, I'm not, I never had those feelings, at least in regards to depression. And when she asked me about that, I also brought up something else. I said, I know this is hard for you as a wife in a marriage with this guy who periodically acts like this. And another backtrack for me, how long does it last? Sometimes 2 or 3 days, sometimes a week, sometimes longer. I said, I get it. And she's like, well, I'm trying to figure out what do I do about this? And I said, for sure, that's fair. And I said, you can do whatever you want, but I kind of warn you or want to let you know about one thing. Be careful when I'm in that place, because if you were to say something like, well, I'm going to leave, or I want a divorce, when I'm in that moment, my response will probably be, go ahead, fine, I don't care, something stupid like that. And the reason why I would say something like that is because, to me, that's not me, it's this guy sitting on my shoulder that's enjoying this shittiness, if I may use that term. And so I told her, well, I understand you want to feel that way and respect that, while I'm there, while I'm in it, it's just not the time to go that route, because I'll say things I kind of don't mean or really mean, or it's just not me. And so that's kind of been my experience. And like I said, I won't take up too much more of your time. And if you guys have questions, you can send me personal ones on email, or if this is in the chat thing. As you can tell, I don't really have a problem talking about it. I do get a little emotional, but that's not a big deal. It doesn't bother me. So yeah, I think it's important to share this with you. I hope that was okay. Clearly I don't have a problem talking about it, so either privately or publicly you want to ask questions, feel free. I hope this was okay. Hope you're well. Take care. Okay, so this is the little journal thing I was talking about I want to show you. You can see I just had some numbers. You know, I'm feeling good, happy face, whatever. And some good numbers. And I just recorded this kind of day after day. And there wasn't much, so here's a whole bunch of good stuff, right? Okay, etc. Another good whole bunch of good days in February. And then there's this one here, good, but not great at 4 after taking a nap. Oh yeah, want to fight, question mark. Right, and it goes from an 8 to a 6 to a 5. And so I could kind of document how I was feeling, but then the next day is kind of fine. Good through here. I'm trying to see if I can find some other stuff. More sad than angry. Still there in quotes, right? So that's the phrase I used. But a little less emotionally sad and tired. More sad than angry over here. And then here's an interesting one. I can say I haven't noted it's a bad day. Who cares? Why bother? I just don't care at 7. Looks like I had a talk with my wife, and so by the end of the day, by 10 o'clock I was feeling better, and then the next day was really great. So this is just kind of what I did. Just trying to see if other stuff here. Okay, here in March. Very cranky, irritable, not really, but kind of depressed. Want to go to the store. It was okay. And I even did it, you can see there by the times of how I felt. And so I just did that every day, and so here wasn't much to talk about. And continuing, right? And there are stressful times I just saw, and that's okay. Really good times here. And so that's what I did for a year. Okay, and here's the chart I made. And you can kind of see there these dips, and I even commented on it. What's the point? I just felt like crying here, and this is, I think, January, right? And then it's all pretty good. And then here, sad, tired, depressed. And then there was a spike, and I put, wow. Unable to be nice is the comment there. Interesting comment. And then again, you see it kind of cruises along. And another wow popped up here. And then in June, comments are angry, tired, and frustrated, had a dip. And then sad. And then another dip. And then here, I think it's because I spent so much time kind of documenting it on that calendar. This is what I was kind of talking about, that I saw it coming, right? I felt it. I could kind of get an idea that it was on its way, and then I could kind of fight it or do something. And you could see the duration was fairly short, okay? And then here, this is something hard to admit. School, look at that. When school started, look at all those lines in a row. That's pretty cool, right? So when school started back up and I got back to work, things got better. And then here you can see I fought it. I must have felt it, and it was a great effort. And then here it says, very irritable, very tired. I don't know what fuse means, unable to stop it. So my bad day right there. And then here I put near the end, actually felt it end at 8:30 p.m. And then I just documented, you know, how many days of each I had, because I wanted to know, is this normal, is it not normal? So 251 days of an 8, which seems pretty solid, you know, not that many 10s or 9s. And then it fell, so that was kind of what I did for the year. And so the point of this is why I feel so strongly about the budget assignment and the have need assignment. Documenting these things for me, you know, really assisted my dealing with this. It didn't cure it or anything, but it definitely helped me. Hope you learned something from it.